Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Black Moon Lilith Rising podcast. I'm so excited to have Stephanie Campos, my friend and fellow mystic, on the show. So, Stephanie is an astrologer, healer, and witch who has been studying the mystical arts for over a decade. She uses your birth chart as a roadmap to your healing alongside EFT tapping, spell work, and energy work to promote radical shifts and transformation. Stephanie believes humans are all inherently magical creatures who are capable of regeneration and that you are worthy and deserving of your dream life. Stephanie is also a writer and serious cat lady. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, share
Yes,
space with
thanks for
you.
coming on.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So, my first question for you is, how would you best describe your mystical gifts and talents?
Oh, um, I think it's just something that's been ingrained in me since my childhood. I've always been curious about the other side, whether it's like spirits or entities or other realms or dimensions.
Mm,
My younger sister has something called Rett syndrome, and it's a neurological disorder, and she is nonverbal. And ever since I was young, I just wanted to figure out, like, how can I talk to her? How can I read her mind? Like, can I become telepathic, in some way? And I think that has just really increased this curiosity in
mm.
the mystical world and spiritual practices, and informed, yeah, what I believe, and studying all of these tools.
Do you feel that you've been able to achieve that and reach her on that level?
mm, we we definitely communicate psychically and
Mm,
non-verbally. I can tell by the way that she breathes if she's going to have a seizure. I can tell by like a grimace in her face if she needs like a pain medicine. There's a lot of body language, and I think like mind connection for sure. Not like full blown uh, telepathic, but there's been times
right.
where she communicates with yes and no cards, and I
Okay.
believe that she can see spirits and entities. I feel them. So like if I walk into a room, I know, if someone or something is there. Then there's been times where I have felt my grandma and my sister, if I was watching her or something, she was like looking over my shoulder in a certain direction. And I would ask her with the yes and no cards, I would say, "Hey, is grandma here?" And she would say yes. So stuff like that, has
Mm,
been really profound and, um, yeah, very special to me and my soul.
mm. In terms of just being able to feel entities, being able to feel spirits, how has that informed your work? Is that a part of your mystical practice?
Mm. Um, I wouldn't say that it informs the work that I do with clients right now. Right now, I am taking some courses and studying. I'm very curious in mediumship that runs in my family, on my mom's side of my family, and I've definitely had a lot of, I've seen, I've felt, and yeah, so I'm very curious about learning more about that and opening up
Mhm.
that channel. But it's not something that I use with my clients and in my practice at the moment. I mean, I think it's, everybody feels vibes and energy, right? So
Oh
that
yeah.
that's like how I would use it definitely in my daily practice. Not I have a Virgo moon, which can be kind of judgy, but I think it's more more intuitive, I really try to tune into what is my initial reaction, what hit am I getting from energetic hit am I getting from someone.
Mm.
Yeah.
What is your I guess when someone comes to you for a reading or for a service, what does that entail? What is your process? Like how does that what does that look like?
So I use the birth chart to help people heal. I think it is a radical tool for transformation, healing, growth, self awareness. Um, but there's so much more that you can go beyond. And when you pair it with EFT tapping or energy work or spell work, you can access those changes in real time. Like changing your life doesn't have to be really hard. It doesn't have to be really difficult. And it's possible to embody real shifts now in this timeline.
Mm.
So I hold 90-minute sessions and I let the clients be the guide. I'm like, if you want to talk about astrology for 90 minutes, let's do it. We'll pull up your chart, we'll talk about your transits, what's to come. But if there's something, in the first 30 minutes that's really standing out, like maybe we keep talking about not being able to set boundaries at work and just struggling with asserting your needs and all of these things, like let's tap on that. So EFT tapping is a tool that has radically changed my life, and can help clients shift after even one session.
So what is EFT tapping? Because I've just gotten into it. A lot of my listeners may not know what that is. Describe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it stands for emotional freedom technique. And you are tapping along acupressure points from traditional Chinese medicine. And you verbalize an issue and you talk through it. And as you name it, it actually helps you lower the cortisol in your body, and it can help you create new neural pathways in your mind. So when you tap on these points, it's impacting the memory center of your brain and the stress center of your brain. And yeah, it just creates this, it allows you to calm down so you can feel into a new existence and possibility and reality. And I think for me, the reason why tapping was so profound is the embodiment piece. It's not enough to, I think I'm a pretty self aware person as a Sun square Pluto. Um, and I could name all of my limiting beliefs, and I could name, oh, I was giving my power away, and oh, I was nervous about taking up space, but nothing was changing. And tapping made it real, made it tangible, made it physical. And we are physical beings living and having a spiritual experience. So I think the combination of that is so profound.
Mm. So all the tribe members, Black Moon Lilith Collective members, they've taken your workshop, but I guess for the listeners, you can't really see it. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. But how does it? Can you just do a little quick
Yeah.
example of
Sure,
tapping?
sure. Okay. Um, so let's say I was nervous talking on a podcast. So I would start by tapping on the side of the hand, and I would just say, like, even though I'm feeling nervous, I still
Even though I'm
deeply,
feeling nervous,
I still deeply and completely
I still deeply and completely
love, accept, and forgive myself.
love, accept, and forgive myself.
And even though sometimes I get tongue tied,
And even though sometimes I get tongue tied,
no one's going to die.
no one's gonna die.
It's not going to be the end of the world.
It's not gonna be the end of the world,
And I still look really cute.
and I still look really cute,
And it's going to be fine.
and it's gonna be fine.
So I'm going to allow myself and my body to calm down.
So I'm going to allow myself and my body to calm down,
And I'm going to thank my body for trying its best to protect me.
and I'm going to thank my body for trying its best to protect me,
But I don't need to be protected in that way,
but I don't need to be protected in that way
because I fucking got this.
because I've fucking got this.
So then we would take a deep breath, hold it at the top, release. And I like to, it's energy work. So I consider it energy work. I say chug water. And then we would do
Mm,
a longer tapping starting on the top of the head above the eyebrows, on the
Okay.
temples, under the eye, under your nose, on your chin, on your collarbone, under your armpit, and then the wrists together. And you just
Mhm.
repeat that. And you can tap on anything yourself. Like if you are scrolling on Instagram and someone triggers you and you're feeling jealous, tap on that. You know, you
Yeah,
can create your own script. There's nothing, you can't mess it up. That's the beautiful thing about tapping. Even if you miss a point, you can't mess it up. It's all
I
helpful.
love
It's
that.
all healing. Yeah.
I love how you only need yourself. Like, you don't have I mean, you can buy stuff probably, like, I don't know if there's any tapping tools or anything like that, but it seems
Mm.
like it's very you can do it in the moment, like, when you're in the airport or walking down the street, you can do
Oh
it
my gosh,
whenever.
I love tapping in public places. I
Do some people look? Are they like,
Oh
"Hey."
my god, yeah, all the time. Even when I drive, and I have a stick shift, so this is, like, not the best, but, if I'm on the freeway, I'll be driving with one hand, and then I'm, like, tapping through the points with my other hand sometimes. But yeah, working with a practitioner one-on-one is amazing because in the beginning they interview you about whatever you're going through, and they're basically we're taking your words, your story, your experiences, and that's the script, that we're going to weave through the
Mm.
session. So it is targeted, it is personalized, and it creates more of a profound shift than like the universal tapping videos, which are also so helpful and are really
Mhm.
what like kickstarted massive change in my life. But um, yeah, it's a powerful tool, and it can be used for manifestation as well. Um, you're
Oh,
speaking things
yeah.
in.
You did a
Mhm.
great one for the tribe that I do. I still do it because the affirmations, it really just helps. Is that what they're called? I think
Yeah, yeah, they're like
in tapping,
affirmations.
like affirmations. They really just help shift your mind out of that trauma response or trigger or reaction. But I really think it really does help. It
Oh,
does.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And I think going back to your question about tools, like just saying, oh, you just need yourself.
Mhm.
My favorite thing to do, and my tapping tip would be tap in front of the mirror. A
Oh,
lot
it's
of
like mirror
people,
work.
it's like, yeah, so you're getting the double whammy of mirror work. And it's
Mm.
freaky. In the beginning, I was like, and I love myself. You know what I mean? Like cringy. Um, but it's powerful. It's really powerful.
I love mirror work. As a Scorpio, like, just yes, going in the mirror in the morning and just saying affirmations. I'm gonna try the tapping in the mirror thing as well, but I'll
Hmm.
go in and not only say affirmations, but just, yes, speak to myself
Hmm.
and talk to your shadow. So I talk about that a lot on Lilith Astrology, but I think mishmashing that with EFT is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, great idea. So in terms of spell work, because you
Mm.
mentioned you're a witch as
Mhm.
well. So
Yeah.
what's I don't want to like ask you personal spells because I know sometimes you don't want to talk. I don't talk about my spells either. But if there any that you want to share or something that's been super transformative for you that you think could really help the listeners out?
Yeah, sure. Um, so I have a Virgo moon, which makes me totally practical, right? And that's like my intuition.
Mm.
And also, I'm busy. I got things to do. So I love a good, quick spell. And I also love, I think anything can be a spell. I don't think it has to
Oh yeah.
be, you get your grimoire out and you have all of your herbs and like, yes, sure. I love those kind of spells too. But I'm here for the quickness of magic as well. So, um, something that I've been doing a lot recently is like fashion magic, and I've been
Okay.
purchasing outfits that I'm going to wear, like, and manifesting an appearance to wear them on. And I'll buy the outfit ahead of time, and I'll get dolled up and I'll, dress myself up, and maybe I'll Photoshop myself into an interview chair, with someone I want to work with, or appear at some show I want to appear on. And that has been just embodying that version of my future self now, and claiming that, like, to the universe, like, not only am I um, saying this is going to happen by, like, putting these clothes on, but I've invested energetically money, into
Yep.
particular pieces. That has been freaking wild. Every time it works like a charm.
Well, someone was on the Today Show recently, which
Oh,
you can see on your website, which I'm gonna
yeah.
link. We'll call out all Stephanie's links at the end. But was that
That was
meant?
the first one. That was the first one. I bought a denim jumpsuit that I, like, had wanted for a really long time, and I was like, "Oh, it's too expensive. You don't need it. You don't deserve it." And then finally I was like, "No, no, no. It's gonna look delicious on me, and I'm gonna wear it on television, and that's just it." And voila. So I think there is something very powerful about when you get ready in the morning. Who do you dress up? Play dress up. We used to play dress up all the time as kids. Like, who do you want to be? Be
Yeah.
the future version of you now, and just play pretend. Fake it till you make it. I
Oh my
think
god, I
that
love
is
that.
is really powerful. And then
Well, it
I
works,
love
people. It literally works. You have it's like a full on testimonial to passion magic. I love
Y
that.
yeah, and then, some other, like, another good easy one, around new moons, or when you're, like, calling in manifestation, especially if it's, like, a water moon. I like to get just, like, a cup of water and tape and write my manifestations on the tape, and I stick it on the glass of water, and then I chug that shit. Quick and easy,
You
So,
like speak it into the water. Make it
yes.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, but anything. I mean, if you like to cook, as you're adding herbs and, the different ingredients, imagine it's different things you want. Like, here's 10,000 more dollars in my bank account. Here's, you know, whatever things you're trying to manifest. But
I
anything
love
can be
that.
magic.
That's so Virgo. That's a Virgo witch. I
Yeah.
love that. In terms of plant magic, I'm like, speaking of Virgo witch, do you recommend any herbs that are your favorites or like anything like
Mm.
that?
I think I think it's important to work with the herbs that you have, or and tend your own garden if you do want to um, grow your own herbs. The house that I live
Mm,
in came with a rosemary bush and a sage bush and some lavender. It is
oh,
like the witchiest house ever, and it's like has a lemon tree and an apple tree. It's very, I'm feeling very grateful and fortunate every day. Part of my gratitude practice is, like, just connecting with this earth, this land, this house is um but I love rosemary. Love me some rosemary.
mm.
Um and even doing, like, a little sweep, with the rosemary and
Mhm.
clearing my energy. Um, yeah, that's I love doing that too.
Ooh, I
Or
love it.
taking a bath, a spiritual bath, you
Oh,
know?
I love those.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah. Do you put crystals in your bath, or what do you do? What do you Yeah.
I do crystal, but sometimes I'll do herbs if
Mhm.
there's a particular spell I'm doing,
Mhm.
then they'll be like, and that could get pretty messy at the end, but during the
Mhm.
bath, it's great.
Yes.
So yeah, a combination of those. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
sometimes I get, like, way too many crystals, and I can't really, it's, like, uncomfortable in there, but, you can
I
never have
want
too
to be
many.
careful of that. They're sharp.
Yeah.
Go in the wrong places. Like, what?
Yeah, but, the mundane, there is magic in the mundane, and I think that there's, something to be said uh, about how our rituals, right? The tiny little tasks that we do, and
Yep.
the more that you make little changes, it's not the big changes that are gonna bring about the most magic. It's like a commitment and dedication and nurturing of those, like, tiny little rituals and making shifts. So, yeah.
So Virgo.
Yeah, I know.
That's like something that I just really like. drill home. I hate to say drill because it's very, I guess it's the Scorpio, the Leo in me. But I really just repeat it a lot on this channel and in my content is ritual because,
Mhm.
and we were just kind of talking a little bit about this before we started recording, but what we'll both of us will find with our clients is we'll meet once a year, we'll meet sporadically, and we can't keep up with you after that. So it's so important in a spiritual practice to practice repetition. And that includes when you're doing EFT or working with your energy and doing energy healing, trying to do it every day so that you're doing it over a longer span of time. And that makes manifestations come in that much faster or your spell work to work faster is really keeping up with repetition. So think that's so important as well.
Yeah, and it signals to the universe like, "Oh my god, this bitch is serious. She's doing it every
Yeah,
day. So, I'll meet her energy there." Whereas like
yeah.
and I think it's so I love to give I'm just like so Virgo cliche today, but I love giving my clients homework, you know, after every
Right.
session. And there is something more powerful about when you're working with someone one on one in a container and you can follow up like, well, did you do that? Like,
Mhm.
how did it work? Did it help? Have you been keeping up with your rituals versus, yeah, meeting someone once a year and barely any changes have taken place the next time you're chatting? And, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, transformation, it's all up to you. And this is a great segue into my next question about let's just talk about manifestation and like what are the biggest what's the biggest thing that you've learned when you really went full on with your manifestation practice and becoming a teacher of it? Like what's like the big key to it that you found?
For me personally, and I think it's obviously going to be different for everyone, but for me, I had to become present. I was living a life where I was dissociating. Most of the time, and if I wasn't dissociating, I was staying super busy just to not think about trauma and on unprocessed trauma that I had experienced, and becoming present, becoming embodied through tapping, literally interacting with my physical being because I've always been so cerebral and talking about other dimensions since I was like in before I was 10, and that's
Mm.
um, cool and great and magical, but I wasn't tied and rooted to the human experience in a lot of ways. And I dissociated and um, enjoying and allowing pleasure and presence in my life in a tangible way has been huge. Um, Definitely.
Oh my goodness, you're reading my mind as well. Presence is so important because a big I that was one thing for me as well in my life. And presence also it just raises your frequency and your magnetism so much because you're also not funneling negativity or fear or your traumas into your next reality. You're focused on now and also when you're present you can have the space, you can clear the space, you can make room for those manifestations to come in, and to make for what you truly want or who you truly are to actually manifest in your life versus the traumas that are from your past, because when you ignore those they're it's a shadow, it just builds up into this big dark shadow that follows you around and you may not notice it, right? So
Hmm.
presence, and when we're saying presence, it's being in your present moment and not allowing other things to disrupt that. Other from the past or from things from the future, just being in the now.
Mhm, mhm, and I was not ever in the now. I was always in the past or I was always in the future anticipating
Mhm.
a repeat of the past, and that's it was my
Mm.
biggest I was my own worst enemy in that way, and I had no real clue. If you would have asked me, I would have been like, "Yeah, I'm present, I'm self-aware, I can tell you what's wrong with me, I can tell you, blah, blah, blah," but, it wasn't until I started tapping and it wasn't like I was like, "I'm gonna tap on all my trauma and figure it out." It was just no, it's like, "Oh, I'm gonna tap on lowering my anxiety." No, I have some trauma around reading. I'm gonna tap through that. Oh, and then as I started to tap more and I became more aware, um, I had a lot of repressed memories come through and some, trauma from my childhood. And that was a massive turning point for me because I was able to name it and able to,
Mm.
you know, I don't want to say, I guess, confront it and process it in my own way and start the healing process. Because, and as I've learned, that it's only been since I started tapping regularly September of last year, and the memories came back in November of last year. So it hasn't really been that long, but the life I was living before, I felt like a prisoner in my own body, and I was self-sabotaging, I was giving my power away, I was trying to shrink and make myself as small and unnoticeable as possible, and to say that, what, like, 9 months later, I feel a complete 180, and healing isn't linear, and I've obviously recognized that and definitely have, waves that come up, but it's just been wild.
Wow. Wow. So is that what's like the biggest radical shift, or is that really like coming to terms, like remembering repressed memories, healing those? Is that the biggest shift for you?
I think that was the biggest one because it was the source of a lot of these other issues, right? Like me giving my power away, me being scared to take up space, me being scared to use my voice, or feeling like I was going to get in trouble if I spoke up about something, no matter what it was. That all stems from childhood abuse trauma that I went through. And I was able to, like, understand on a deeper level why I was acting in this way. I had other traumas go on in my childhood, like, but and I always thought it was just that, and I was like, oh well, maybe it's from, I grew up
Mm.
really young, I had a lot of responsibility with my sister, like, um, all of the regular, your parents are divorced. My parents met in a cult, which was a strange way for them to meet in the beginning. So there's just a lot of different things that I had just kind of placed, or assumed, like, oh, that's where this stems from. But I was able to get to, like, the root of, yeah, of a lot of my life through tapping and just feeling
Wow.
embodied for the first time, because I was so scared to be in my body.
Wow. What about with your clients? Is there a specific one you can talk about and share what's
Mm,
the biggest shift you've seen?
mm. Um, so when I start working with a client, depending on what issue they wanna, let's say they have a scarcity mindset, um, I'll come up with a setup statement at the beginning, and I'll say, like, let's say, "I am abundant," or "It is safe for me to quit my job," or whatever their fear is around that. And I'll say 1 to 10, where are you? 1 being, "Oh my god, hell no, that is not true." 10 being, "Fuck yes, of course I am abundant and can quit my job." And usually they'll start out somewhere between 2 or 4 in the lower end.
Mm.
Um, and after the tapping, I always ask again the setup statement. Generally, people move, like, towards an 8 towards the end of the tapping
Wow.
session. So it depends. I think, I've had sessions where I see shifts within 20 minutes,
Wow.
after a session. Or it's but some issues are complex and layered. And, like, when it comes to childhood trauma, it you're unpacking the layers of that, So, um it just really depends. Like, there's self-worth pieces, then there's, yeah, it's like an onion.
Mm. Wow. You're just like helping me segue here with the self-worth because now I want to segue into a little astrology.
Mm,
And right now we have the nodes. We have the North Node in Taurus, we've got self-worth
mhm,
there, and then we
mhm,
have the South Node in Scorpio. And I just want to touch on that because South Node in Scorpio can be very heavy. And so I think everyone in the collective, to some extent, whether it's you're stressed out over Roe v. Wade or you have something in your own individual life going on in relation to the South Node, what is some advice to everyone how to get
mm,
through these next 18 months? Well, I think what do we have left now? Like 10 months
yeah,
left in this
yeah.
cycle. Yeah, and I have a lot of Scorpio listeners as well. So
Okay. Well, I would
yeah.
say to all the Scorpio listeners out there, they probably already know this, but I think the best piece of advice that I can offer is to try and surrender and to release control because that those are scorpionic shadow side tendencies to try to want to control, especially as you if you have been through and lived through difficult life experiences. You are like,
Mhm.
"Mm-mm-mm, that's not going to happen again to me. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen." And that's you can't do that. You gotta just it sounds it's it's harder than it sounds, obviously, but that's I think it ties in with being present. Surrendering is just to what's going on in the present and just naming, like, I'm not okay right now. I'm not like, this is fucking hard right now. This breaks my heart, or whatever, wherever you are, naming it. And also, if you can become an observer of your emotions versus like um, just getting more frustrated and like kind of spiraling and getting lost in them, but really stepping back, and especially if it's like a personal trigger, like, why?
Mm,
Where does this come from? The more reflective you can be. I also think journaling is a tool that's changed my life. I started doing that at the same time that I started tapping every day. I started journaling with the planets every day. You don't have to journal with the planets, but it's a wonderful way for anyone who has any type of anxiety, insomnia, um, depression, to just get all of your thoughts, everything that's going on up here onto the page, and you can feel like a clean slate almost because it's there. If you need to reference it, you don't have to keep replaying the sad cliff notes in your mind over and over again. You've got it in your little book. You can go on with your day, and it's helped me become more present in that way, and helped me
mm,
surrender to um, the situations. At yeah, when
yeah.
when needed.
I think the great thing about Scorpio is like the great thing about Scorpio. On the other end of Scorpio, we do have Taurus,
Mm,
and we've got Uranus there, and basically, just for reference for everyone, so these are the karmic nodes of the moon, and basically, when they're transiting as a collective, we experience the south node is where we're going to experience some loss or some change, and
mhm,
we're going to need to surrender certain things in order to move towards that north node. And Taurus does represent worth. It does represent abundance as well.
mhm.
It represents self-worth. So surrendering can kind of lead us in that direction, but do you have any advice on worthiness, self-worth lack, like people who
Mm.
may be battling those shadows? Because I just feel like that's just it's a collective thing right now. A lot of people are dealing with.
I think something that I started to recognize in like my own personal self-worth journey was a lot of the stuff I was telling myself about myself was like projections from other people. Stuff, whether maybe they were verbally said to me or maybe they weren't. Maybe it was just something I felt. And maybe that person did feel that way, but maybe they didn't also. And so I think kind of deconstructing and being more reflective on like, what are the mean things you say to yourself? You have to be able to name that. You have to be able to be aware of that. And from there, you can start to clear that stuff out either through like I'll make a list every morning or every week, of stuff, like shadowy stuff that's coming up in me because we're human. That's natural. It happens. And I try to clear it out that week through tapping, one day at a time. Sometimes I'll tap on two things or three things. Um, I've tapped so hard, I've got like a giant bruise here before. But yeah, I think just being able to be aware of how you speak to yourself and also recognizing that a lot of that programming is probably not actually what you believe. It's probably picked up and you can shed that. You don't have to carry that around. And when you choose to shed that, when you choose that I don't have I don't need to operate like this anymore, your life can literally change and it can be easy. It doesn't have to be hard. Doesn't have to. Mirror work, like you were saying, unbelievable tool. Like just start being nice to yourself in the mirror. I can't tell you how many times I've recommended that to people and they're like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Yeah." People are scared to say nice things to
Yeah.
themselves. And that's sad. That's like the bare minimum. You're alone. Who's going to judge you? Nobody cares. But it's hard. It's a challenge for a lot of people. Um,
Yeah,
s-
this programming, like you said. I mean, if we even look at, like, I used to work in the beauty industry, we see ads all the time. It's all about like teaching us to hate ourselves, or we're not enough, or we
mhm,
need this product to be like whoever, whatever influencer or whatever celebrity. Like a lot of our culture in America, it's
mhm,
ingrained in us to shrink ourselves, and especially women as well. Like, hello,
uh-huh,
like the pay gap exists, but also a lot of the time we can perpetuate our own pay gap
mhm,
as women because it's just ingrained in us to not ask for enough, or to
mhm,
think that a dollar is okay, whereas a man would walk in someplace and ask for five and they'd be like, why are you really asking for that? Like, and you have a
mhm.
problem with that? So I think this axis is really a time for, like you're saying, shedding all of that shadow of unworthiness, doubt, crisis, trauma, all the scorpion fun stuff. So that
Yeah.
that Taurus energy, that abundance that's right on the other side of all of that can really shine through.
And Taurus is also about values, your personal value system. And I think when you are living in alignment with your values, if you can name like what are your core 3 to 5 values and you're doing your fucking best to live that way, your self-worth is naturally going to increase as well. I
Mm.
think something else about the South Node in Scorpio, just being something people can do is invite in more self-forgiveness, self-compassion. That's something that like doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It barely exists in the world today as it is. And if you can forgive yourself and love yourself and commit to being better, you know, do
Yeah.
it.
It's shame,
Mhm.
because a lot of the time, I mean, shame, I would associate that it's a shadow of Scorpio. If you're dealing with trauma, which this is Scorpio energy, you can feel shame around it, and then that
Mhm.
builds up, and like it stops you from being yourself, like
Yeah.
being who you are. So we're filming this in July. We're almost to Leo season.
Yeah.
Steph is a Leo. And I really think that this Leo season for everyone, not just Leos, but especially Leos or fixed signs, um, it's about really embodying yourself and your truth and your true expression. And shame, guilt, not feeling like enough, unworthiness, all blocks who you are.
Mhm.
It all blocks it. And whether that's, you want to juggle in a circus, or if you want to be a movie star, it can block and dampen that light that you were meant to express in this world if
Mhm.
you don't get rid of all that shit and clear it out so that there's room to actually shine. And I think a lot
Mm.
of people, especially Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, these are the fixed signs. It's really gonna be full force, and a lot of you are gonna be like, "Enough's enough." Like,
Mhm.
"Time's up on all of you bitches." Like, "Here I
Mhm.
come.
Yes.
Nothing's gonna stop me."
Yeah, there's Leo season starts off with a bang and it keeps it going. We've got a
Mhm.
lot of the outer planets aspecting inner planets, and that is going to bring some monumental shifts that are overdue and much needed. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a life-changing time.
It is. So in terms of astrology, how do you feel it's changed your life? And obviously it is the life changer, so
Oh my gosh. What a big question.
I
I
know,
think
I feel like I'm like, there's so many things to say about astrology.
um, journaling with the planets has been the most profound, and that's more recent. Because I just feel like I know them better, and I'm also able to learn that, like, oh, if I have Mars on my IC, which could be a difficult transit, someone might, see as it's never what you think it's going to be. So I used to transit trip a lot and get ahead of myself and be like, oh my gosh, this is going to come up in my chart. It's going to be the end. It's going to be awful. But journaling with the planets has let me see, like, oh no, there's a lot of different ways that can manifest. It can manifest as a headache. I had a horrible headache when Mars was on my IC all day. I never get
Mm.
headaches. So, it can show up in many, many different ways. I think one of the ways that astrology has really changed my life is it's all about timing, right? So it shows you these
Mm.
periods of time that are the most opportune for either shedding, purging, and releasing, manifesting, um, and taking action. And when I pair it with spell work and EFT tapping, I know exactly what to tap on, right? If it's a full moon, I'm like, let's clear this shit out. I don't need this anymore in my life. If it's a new moon and I want to manifest a book or something like that, I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm a best-selling author. You know how to,
Mm.
what the timing of what to go after in your life. It's such an invaluable tool. And
I
horary.
like
Do you practice
oh, yes.
horary?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
asking a question for the moment. It's kind of like tarot for astrology. You cast a chart if someone asks a question at the time that they ask, and based on where all the planets are, you get a pretty detailed answer. Very
Oh, yeah.
magical.
Yeah, like, you can, like, find stuff in your
Yes. I
house.
have found so many lost things in our house, and Joey's like, "How'd you do that?"
You're like
I'm like, there you go. The moon was in the second house. We knew it was going to come back to us.
yeah. Wow. I can't even, like, I literally wake up in the morning and immediately, like, which I shouldn't be doing, but I have my phone, I have Astro Gold on my phone, and I'm like, "Transits," and I look at the
Yes.
day. I don't know how people do it. Like,
Yeah.
I can't go a
Yeah.
day, like
It's the weather. It's the weather. I do the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
do you have a Honeycomb Calendar? Have you ever?"
No, what's this?
So, it's this amazing book, and it gives you all of your transits for, like, the whole year, and it will do it based on your annual perfection, like, Time Lord of the year, so, like, the more impactful transits,
Oh,
the
wow.
full moons that are, like, right on your personal planets, but it is phenomenal, and I recommend that planner to anyone who tracks their transits.
Oh, I need to do that.
Yeah,
Love that. Can you just get it online, or do they have, like, a website?
they have a website, and you put in your birth information, and they have all these different options that you can add on. Like, they can put in your solar return chart, so you can, like, see some themes for your year to come. They have a different, like, coding system, so, like, they'll highlight the transits that you really need to know about for the day. But
Mm.
I do that. Like, I go through my calendar 4 weeks in advance, and I'm like, I will literally mark my work calendar. Um, I'll take days off where I'm like, that's going to be an awful day for me, or I'm going to be crying all day in a bathtub, or when you know.
Oh,
Um,
You're talking to a Cancer rising Scorpio sun, okay? Every day is like you just described. So
Yeah.
crying in the bathtub.
Yes, yes. So it's really helpful in that sense, I think, oh, that just reminded me of, saying like how has astrology changed my life? Like with timing and planning, I was able to see, um I knew when my dad would probably pass away. And like a year in advance, I saw a really difficult time coming up, and it was from the outer planets. It was once in a lifetime transits. I wouldn't be experiencing them again, and I blocked
Was it
off
like
the.
Pluto?
It was it was Saturn square Uranus. That last Saturn square Uranus in December was exactly on top of my Sun square Pluto, exactly to the degree. So
Mm.
very intense, very intense, and
Oh,
um,
yeah. And Uranus is the ruler of your eighth, right?
mm, my eighth is.
Are you Aquarius? Eighth.
Oh yeah, in Placidus, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it
Oh.
was, but I
Mm.
was able to close my books. I closed my books months ahead, for all of
Yeah.
November and all of December. And that was when I had like was dealing with so much in my life, and I knew I wasn't going to have the bandwidth to work with clients, and I was able to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, everyone, you can see that stuff. I've seen things like that, and like you, yeah, you're like, okay, you're able to process it. And this is coming from an astrologer point of view, of course, because we can really see it. And in terms of working with clients, I know that you have to be very cognizant of what people can handle, but with
Yes.
ourselves, you can see, yeah, you can see things
Yeah.
like that.
And I think it's
Yeah.
so different if you have a client that's like, my, father has a terminal illness. They've given him this window. Do you see
Right.
anything coming up? Versus like if someone's like, when's my mom gonna die? I'm not gonna tell you that. I don't know that, because death transits are totally unpredictable. Totally unpredictable. And it's not Pluto. It's not always what you think. Pluto
Yeah.
rarely kills people.
Yeah, yeah, Uranus is a big one. Saturn, yeah,
Mhm.
Saturn, Uranus square. That's yeah, and it can be sudden with
Mhm.
Uranus as well. It's not too fun.
Mhm.
And right now, as a collective, we were just talking about this as well. We have the Pluto
Mm.
return for the United
Mm.
States, and Pluto is at play, but we've got Uranus in Taurus, Saturn's in Aquarius, and then next year Pluto moves into Aquarius as well. So, like, what are your thoughts on the times, the transition times? Some say we're moving into the age of Aquarius, some say we're not. Like, what are your thoughts on the next
Mm.
like year or 2 years?
I think we're confronting our shadows. And I think it's
Mhm.
going to be super fucking unpleasant. And I think it's going to be heartbreaking, and it's going to be devastating. And I think um, it has to get worse before it gets better. And I think as much as you can, hold the hope in your heart, but I think we have some intensity ahead, and we have a lot of
Yeah.
shadows to confront. This country was not founded on anything moral. And um, yeah, we have to deal with that. It's time to face face the music.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what Pluto is really driving home, and Pluto can be relentless like Scorpio, but Pluto is in Capricorn, but like Pluto rules over Scorpio, but like the sign, it's like, have you learned your lesson? And if not,
Mhm.
Pluto is going to be like,
It's gonna keep
gonna keep
going. Yeah.
keep driving. Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, whew, what an intense note to end on.
I know. I'm like, how do we bring it
I
back?
can't help it.
They're very Scorpio, very like Sun square Pluto and Scorpio of us. But it's important to name that and reflect on that, and
Yeah,
use that information to make the change that you can on your own personal level. Like, speak up for injustices, use a platform if you have it. I mean,
Yeah.
just do the work.
Yeah, do the work, and not only for the collective, but for yourself. Because when you do the work yourself too, internally, it's like a chain reaction to
Mhm,
everyone else. Um, and I think empowerment, it doesn't look pretty all the time. And I
mhm.
think some of the most powerful magic is done in the dark. It
Yeah.
really is. And I mean, I and you as well, we've gone through like career changes, life changes, all through such a dark time in COVID from
Mhm,
2020 till now. And I know a lot of my clients have, and just a lot of people in general. We had the Great Resignation as a collective. We're all doing our own personal work. So now is the time. Now is the time to really like dig deep. And even though it's going to feel difficult and not so fun sometimes,
mhm.
on the other side of that is the light, is getting out of certain situations or moving towards something else, making a change.
Yeah, and you can't have the light without the darkness. And so this is where we are. We can choose
Yeah.
to move through it together. And I think joy and pleasure and presence are all acts of resistance, you know? So
Yeah.
continuing to invite that into your life and remind yourself that you deserve that and you can still have fun and live a joyful life throughout all of this. Like it's possible and but the dualities, right? Like
Yeah.
so it's a lot to hold all at once.
Yeah, it is. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your gifts, your perspective. Where can everyone find you on the interwebs?
Thank you for having me. This was so lovely.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at Stephanie N. Campos. And you can find me on the internet at stephaniencampos.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next time.
Take care.